All right. Good evening, Facebook. This is Suzanne Hart, Fit, Fab, and Fulfilled, and we are a little bit late. We had a 8 o'clock scheduled, and my guest, who I will introduce in a moment, had tornado warnings, wind, cancellations, no camera, all those things that go with weather. But we persevered because the show must go on. So here we are. And we're going to wait a minute and allow some people to have an opportunity to join us. So we're going to get going. But as we get going, I see someone jumping on. I see Cindy. Hello, Cindy. How are you? And I know we're sharing. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do, as you jump on, this is going to be a stellar interview. Now, if you saw the interview last week that we talked about, are you healthy but not well, right? I was healthy but not well, and we talked about the difference between health, fitness, and wellness. This is a continuation of that conversation. This is going to be an amazing conversation. So if you love that, you want to be here. If you have a friend who you believe is going to be touched by this information, and why wouldn't they? It's going to be amazing. Bless a life and pass it on. Pass it on to them. Bless them. Post it on their page. Make sure they get this information. And we are going to have a beautiful, beautiful conversation. So who am I sitting with? Who is this beautiful sister sitting beside me? She hails from St. Louis.
And we're having hail.
And they're having hail, they're having winds, things are being canceled, but she is here. She's a member of the Audacious Faith, so she's one of my covenant sisters. And this beautiful sister helps you, listen to this, she helps you let go so that you can experience joy and flow. So slow down, let go, center yourself so you can experience joy and flow. She is an author of a number of books, and I believe some CDs. And her commitment is to really help you master the mindset, listen to those words, that helps you experience more joy, more flow, more ease in your life. Now, why is she here today? I'm so excited for this conversation. So we are at the beginning of a launch of one of her new books, and you're hearing it here on Fit, Fab, and Fulfilled. Her book is called The Freedom to Eat, 10 Secrets for Lasting Weight Loss and Inner Peace. And I want you guys to hear that. 10 secrets for not only lasting weight loss, but inner peace. So this is not about a diet. This is not about a quick fix. This is about the real conversation. We know that health is from the inside out. So please welcome my guest, Miss Jackie Trottmann. Hey, Jackie, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you, Suzanne?
I am fantastic. I'm excited to have you here. And you persevered, right?
I persevered, yes. I'm excited to be there. It was pretty funny when you said hail from St. Louis, because they're talking about ping pong size hail happening here. So hopefully that won't happen in the midst. If I have to go run down into the basement, I apologize. We'll regroup another time. But I think it's starting to clear up. So
is it tornado warnings that you're having?
Tornado, yes. They've been broadcasting on the news, preempting every program since 5:30.
But they can't preempt. They can't preempt our program because we're just persistent like that. I love it. I love it. So Jackie, before we jump into a little bit about your book, why don't you share with the listeners a little bit about who you are?
Wow. Okay. Well, I was born and raised in St. Louis. I had a British mother. Golly, I didn't expect that question. So what about you? So I had a very wonderful career. I was in radio and advertising for 22 years, and I was a marketing consultant for about 10 years after that. Started when I was 5.
I love it.
So I left to really pursue my dream, which was really writing and creating, about 10 years ago. So it's been, as every journey, it's not, a trajectory. It's more of 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. So I'm just excited to finally be in this space and just to help people do, as you said, to let go and to really experience joy and flow in their lives.
So marketing and advertising to author, that is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate actually, because being an author, you don't have a team of people out there pushing your book, and you have this romantic image of, oh, I'm going to be a writer and my books are just going to magically sell, and that's not how it works. So I'm pretty fortunate to have had all that exposure to make me feel comfortable to get out and to promote the book. But more than anything, really, it's more promoting what the book can do for people, and the joy and flow I've experienced in my life, and the physical and emotional and spiritual weight that I've lost, and helping people do the same and not go through that struggle and spend so many decades not even being aware of what they were hungering for.
I got you. So let's go back a few years and talk about, because I know the book is really it's kind of a stop along a journey, right?
Absolutely.
And so why don't you, like, looking at you, and I've met you, you are a tiny thing.
Right. It's hard for me to get used to that word tiny, but anyway,
you know what?
Image, still.
Myself as well, right? So you're tall, petite, and so it's hard to envision that you ever had a weight issue. So start with that place for everyone. What was that? What was that like, and what was going on in your world?
Well, I mean, I was always fortunate. It was always the same 30 pounds that I was dealing with. But then when I got pregnant, I had the freedom to eat, which is not the same as the freedom to eat that I talk about. And it was kind of liberating for me, but I got up to 210 pounds when I was pregnant. And for the first time really in almost my entire life, I wasn't on a diet. And so it really was really freeing to finally have these kind of constraints of what I'm going to eat and not eat when I was pregnant. But it started really when I was an adolescent. A lot of it had to do with my father was an alcoholic, and he was later diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And when I was little, it was a very idyllic childhood and everything was great. And I was really the apple of his eye. And then something, I don't know, happened when I was about 7, 8, 9 years old that just changed. And I felt abandoned, actually. And that's when I really started eating. And food for me was just comfort. And I just had this insatiable appetite. I remember I would have money to buy food at school. There were these confectionaries around school, so they served all these snacks and all, sloppy joes and things like that. And I would literally, when he would have his rant and rave and pass out for the night, I would tiptoe into the bedroom, and he had a coin purse on the dresser, and I would steal quarters, and my heart was like pounding because I was stealing, and I was hoping he wasn't going to wake up. But that was like my habit. And that was my money that I would just eat and eat and eat. And then when I started to, be about 12 or 13 years old, that's when I started to read all the teen magazines, and I started to see all the models, and I started comparing myself. And I've always been a redhead, and there weren't any redheaded models. They were mostly blonde, and they were tall and thin and all of that I wasn't. And so I just started this, kind of hating myself for not measuring up to these images. And then I started to go on all these drastic diets.
It's so interesting because I think this is so common for probably almost any woman that's listening, myself included. So, there's a few key things. One is just the images that we're bombarded with every day that are images of perfection that truly, as we get wiser and older, we realize aren't real, airbrushed, all those things. But when you're young, it kind of begins to be the concept of what a woman should look like. And I'm using should intentionally, right? So a concept of what a woman should look like. And with that comes all these restrictions. And it often shifts our relationship with food, right? And so how many women out there have a relationship to food that is, yes, it's nurturing, but it's also filled with so much guilt, right? And so much lack of permission to really just consume and do. So here you are, you're pregnant, and probably for the first time as an adult, you have permission in a way to actually eat.
Right. Well, and also because I had gained so much weight, I remember very vividly how the body image really, how I viewed myself, because I had all these various sizes of clothing, and there was this black cocktail dress with spaghetti straps, and it was an A-line, and I was moving clothes around, and I was holding it up, and I was looking at it, and I thought, oh my goodness, like I couldn't even get it one leg in that now, Wow. And I thought of how skinny that dress was, but I never saw myself that way at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I really, after the pregnancy, things calmed down for a while, but then I got into old patterns again. And then I was going back to going back on the diets.
So when you say old patterns, talk a little bit about what that actually is.
Well, it was an all or nothing attitude. So I was on a diet or I was off a diet. So if I was on the latest, no carb diet, if I had, I had a communion bread at church, it's like, oh, I ate my carb, I blew it for the day. And then I'd be off to the races on a binge. And that's what would happen. And then the craziest thing would be is if I always kind of had these boundaries. I would never let myself get to a certain weight because I would just start to feel really bad. My clothes were getting too tight to wear. And I thought, okay, I'm not going there. So then I would go on a drastic diet. But then what I would do before the diet is I would eat anything I knew I wasn't going to be able to have on the diet. So if it was, nachos or Doritos or Oreo cookies or whatever, I would go binge on all that food I couldn't have.
Yeah.
Before I went on the diet. I was so unaware. I was so unaware of my behavior, of how crazy it was.
It reminds me of when I competed, and I myself had never been on a diet either, and so.
Now, is this in bodybuilding that you were doing competition?
Yeah. So when I first started getting ready for a competition, just the thought of the restriction, I would go and probably for about a week or two before, I would eat everything that I thought I was not going to eat during that time. Now, the crazy thing was I'd gain weight and then I'd have to go take it off again. But mentally, it didn't even connect because I was just like, okay, I'm not going to be able to eat these things. So I'm just going to go have them all. And then I would get to contest shape. The contest would be over. And then it would be like, oh my God, all the things I haven't eaten. Right. And so I'd go eat them all. And I ate things that I would never usually eat, but it was just a fact that I could have it or I couldn't have it. And now I could, that I would go eat things that were just insane, right? And I would eat myself back to a weight that I didn't like, and then I would stop. And then I'd be pissed off, then I'd be upset, then I'd be frustrated, and the cycle would be like this. So talk a little bit about the emotional roller coaster that comes with that.
Oh, well, it's a huge roller coaster. I mean, you never think that you're good enough. I mean, it's so foreign to me now because I've just woken up from really what I was doing. It was an endless loop, and it was almost a self-fulfilling, sabotaging prophecy, you know. And I know too, and a lot of people do this too. You know, we're coming up on swimsuit season, so it's like, oh, I'm going to go on a diet because it's swimsuits, or I've got a wedding to go to, or I've got this event where I want to really look good. And it was always about looking good, and it was never about health and wellness, and just and being healthy. You know, it never awareness a lot, because awareness is the first secret.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you say that, because I'm a believer that probably 80% of the population does not know what a health and wellness conversation truly is. Most people know what it means to diet. Most people know what it means to exercise to the max. Most people know the all or nothing. They know the extremes, but very few people understand this concept of health, wellness, and fitness, right? So they go and they do, I myself included, until I got woke, if you will, and I did all the extreme things, and all those extreme things are fleeting because it doesn't really address the inner issues, right? And it becomes this emotional roller coaster of, when I'm the perfect weight, I'm on a high, but the high is a slippery slope, and I know I'm going to lose it because there's going to become that day where something's going to happen. I'm going to be triggered. I'm going to eat, and then I'm going to start the downward spiral. And then I hit rock bottom, and then something happens that gives me this, I got to do something. Then I start the climb again. I hit the high, and then and each of it, I feel good when I'm high, and my self-esteem, my self-worth is in the toilet when I'm on the low. So
yeah, and oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that kind of emotional roller coaster and physical roller coaster on your body never gets to a healthy state. Yeah. So for me, I was always the, 5 pounds up, 10 pounds, 20, then lose it, then gain it, then lose it, then gain it. And you're never able to stay there. And now it's like 16 years I've been at the weight. I thought it was funny. My weight is lower than what I used to lie about on my driver's license.
Yeah, when my weight is almost around where I thought the ideal was, and the thing is I don't actually work at it. And so this is the piece for me. So what shifted for you that began a journey of looking at health and doing health in a different way? What was the shift?
It was a huge one. And, things happen, people come into our lives, you hear something and it just changes things. And that's what happened to me. Was I had, I want to talk about this later, and the whole mind, body, spirit connection. And we kind of, those words are kind of thrown around loosely, but they're so integral and have to be all integrated together. Mm-hmm. And so what happened for me was I had actually turned away from my faith for 20 years, and my faith had always been very important to me. But I had this image of God when I was growing up. From the pulpit, it was all this, you're a miserable sinner. And it was, I don't know, it was the way God was kind of represented as this vengeful Heavenly Father. And I had an angry earthly father at home. So I didn't get a whole lot of comfort from the God that I was learning about at church. And I did more groveling than being grateful. And so I always thought if I stepped out of line that God would squish me like a bug is how I thought. And so when I was in my 20s and I got into advertising, I totally turned away from God and my faith, and I didn't get squished like a bug. And so I was quite happy with just handling things on my own. And finally, after my son was born in 7 years, when he was 7 years old, I really had this desire to go back and find a really wonderful church that would feed me and that I would learn about the God that I'd been searching for. And I'd also sung my whole life, and I had given up singing too. And I wanted to join a choir, and I found this wonderful church, First Presbyterian Church in Kirkwood. And I've been going there since 1977. And it just feeds my soul, and I just have wonderful friends. It's just been a beautiful place, and I've grown so much spiritually. And at the time, there was a choir director, and he was a very young, animated German, and we had sung for a nursing home or something one day, and he went, "Oh, I want to work with you and do voice lessons with you." And so I went into his office and we would do voice lessons. And one day we're doing the voice lesson and he's facing the wall and his back to me with the piano. And he turned and he swung around and he planted his feet on the floor and he said, "Why won't you let go?" That was it. I mean, he was talking about my voice, not my. It's like someone had thrown a bucket of ice water in my face. And I went, "Oh my gosh, I know why I won't let go, because I'm doing everything I thought I should in my life. I had a career that was just killing me. I was married. I had a marriage that was just crumbling. I had all the fulfillment of the American dream, dream home check, luxury cars check, designer clothes, big fat salary. And I was lost. And
it's interesting because, oftentimes, like what I hear you is like you're holding on to dear life, to things that you actually don't want, right? Yet you're afraid to let go.
Yeah, well, I didn't. At that point, I was just doing everything that I thought I should be doing. And because of the relationship at home with my parents and the way my mother was trapped in the marriage and as abusive as my father had been towards her, I mean, I was like, I'm not going to depend on anybody, and I didn't even want to depend on God. And so I was, doing all this and striving and accomplishing, and I was just spiritually bankrupt. I mean, I was rich on the outside, and on the inside I wasn't. And I started to confide in a friend, codependency. And I said, no. And she said, you need to buy this book, Codependent No More. And I went to the bookstore and I started leafing through it. And I was like, me. I bought it. I think I highlighted 80% of it or something. And I had no idea that I always thought that alcoholism was my father's problem. And that because I hadn't become an alcoholic, that I was good. And I didn't realize I'd become a workaholic. I was addicted to food. I used alcohol and food to stuff my feelings. And I stuffed them so far down that I didn't know how to feel. So that changed my life. And also what I had turned to, I was very stressed out, and I had some yoga tapes that somebody had given me. And I thought, I'm gonna put this yoga tape and see if that's gonna help me de-stress. And what was interesting was it talked about being gentle with yourself I was never gentle with myself. I was always doing the yoga. I would always eat whatever. If it was breakfast, it was time to eat. If it was lunch, it was time to eat. If it was dinner, it was time to eat. I had totally overrun any fullness, anything with food. And all of a sudden, I wasn't hungry. And I began to listen to my body. And that was a big turning point for me too.
So just so I can recap, so here you are, you're singing. And the reason I want to recap it is that, you know, oftentimes people look at weight as and issues around our body as attached to the physical, right? And and what you're saying is, so you're singing, and the person who's coaching you turns around and says, why won't you let go? Now, he's not talking about what's going on with you physically. He's talking about you in a totally different realm in terms of letting go so that you can sing.
Yeah.
And what you get connected to is all the ways that you are not free in the different areas of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I really want to highlight this because oftentimes when people think about weight loss and they think about all those things, they never connect the emotional, they rarely, I should say, I don't want to use yet, never, they rarely connect the emotional holding on, the physical restrictions, all the emotional stuff that's happening that as a result of the weight of it, the burden of it, it's showing up in our habits, in our ways of being, in our bodies, in all these different ways. And we're thinking, go to the gym, exercise, eat less. But really what you're saying is it's an inner awakening that begins that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And also the spiritual component of that was just, you know, all the 12-step programs always talk about surrendering to a higher power.
So talk a little bit about that, because I think for someone who's listening and they're like, okay, weight, spirituality, mindset, like what on earth? So talk a little bit about this spiritual awakening and how that connects.
Well, part of that, you know, that image I had of God being the great scorekeeper in the sky and squish me like a bug if I stepped out of line, was the more I connected with God and really reached out in that relationship. I just, I'd already lost my weight, but I had a Holy Spirit experience.
Okay.
And it was, another thing that was huge for me was our pastor had done a sermon on prayer. And he said, basically, what I got from the sermon was that prayer is talking to God, just like you and I are talking. You know, for me, it was a dear God, a laundry list of my requests, followed up with a in Jesus' name, amen. You know, that was pretty much prayer. I was talking at God. Yeah. I wasn't really talking to God.
You weren't in a conversation.
Exactly. So I started to I just would start to talk to God on the way to work and I had a 45-minute commute. And instead of playing CDs or anything like that, I would talk to God. And so in the middle of the night, I was waking up. And so I thought, well, I'll just pray for people until I went back to sleep. And so one day when I'm driving to work, I said in this silly voice, I go, God, I think you're waking me up in the morning because I think you want me to talk to you. And it was like, wham. I felt like, you know how the wind's knocked out of you? Yeah. But it was the opposite. I was just full of this divine love. It was this euphoric, like a trance almost. And it lasted about 20 minutes. I just didn't want it to end. And when I turned off the highway, the feeling was kind of gone, but I'm like, I'm a new creation. I mean, what Paul talks about, I'll make all things new. And everything I struggled with and the addictions I did have, they all just went poof. I didn't have any of those desires or any of that anymore.
it's interesting. It's interesting because as I'm listening to you, and I'm connecting the two. So the guy in the choir talks about letting go, right? And I know for myself, the more I have learned to surrender, if that's an accurate word, to surrender to something bigger than me, higher than me, and be in conversation with that which I surrender to, right? The burdens are lifted. And when the burdens are lifted, I don't know about you, but I feel lighter, and life feels lighter. And things can happen, but they don't happen with the same weight because I don't have to carry it myself.
Absolutely. Yeah, and surrender, we have the word is bad, right, in our culture, because it's like win or lose, and no in between. And surrender's giving. It's not quitting. It's just like you said. It's letting go of the struggle.
It is, and I know for myself, it really is giving up my need to be in control. Right? And it's not that and this is the thing. It's not that I give up. Right? Because I'm persistent. It's not that I give up. It's I give up the need to control things that I have no control over. And therefore I surrender and I allow life to unfold, and I trust that he's got me. Right? And giving that away, it's I love the way you talk about you're full, right? It's a new life energy that you walk with.
And it's that, the hunger, because we all hunger we think it's going to be a job or a person, or when I get to the magic weight, and I think that hunger is that hunger for God, that nothing else fills that desire like God does. And that peace and that fullness makes you be content.
I totally agree. So how does this play into weight loss? How does this play into let me ask it this way. What's the connection between inner peace and this thing called weight loss?
That is a really good question. I have to think about that. Well, for all the weight that we talked about, because it's not just physical weight anymore. When you're eating well and you're taking care of yourself, you don't have that mind churning stuff going, I had the cheeseburger and the fries and the cheesecake, and you don't want. It's not to say you can't have that if you want to, but that's not your diet, because, and I hate to use that word, but I mean that's not healthy eating. You want to take care of yourself and you love yourself, and so you don't have that chatter anymore of. I have to count how many calories I had, or I have to do this. So you're free from that. And then when you come to terms with the emotional weight that you carried, for me, it was the codependency issues and other events that happened to me with my father that I had stuffed down. Now that those have come to light, and I'm not carrying those anymore. And also the spiritual weight of having a God that I know who created me to love me and does love me and wants to be there. And you talked about, I'm thinking of that yoke upon you, because my yoke is easy and my burden is light, giving our burdens, because a yoke in those days, and probably in some other countries now, join two animals together so that the load would be distributed. And it's just lifting all that. And also in our in the culture that we live in, I just heard on a podcast today about a gentleman was talking about kindness and why are people not kind? And he was talking about, from the morning the news starts to the end of the evening when the news starts, we're fed that the world's a dangerous place, that it's fear, fear. And that's also not being afraid anymore and losing that, not that you aren't afraid or have doubts or fears, but they don't hijack your peace any longer.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because, I have come to understand that this thing called inner peace is really, it begins with my self-love, right? Mm-hmm. And it begins, and the way I connect the two is that my weight and my self-care, whether that be how I nourish my body, how much I sleep, how much, what I do for exercise, how much I hydrate myself, even the thoughts I have, I remind myself that it's all a reflection of my self-love and my self-respect. And that I am created to be loving and respectful. And in order for me to be loving and respectful of others, I'm required to practice being loving and respectful of self. Absolutely. And so for me, it's just being in that relationship with myself and in that relationship with God that gives me that place where I'm like, you know what, it's all good. It's all good. And it's day by day and minute by minute. And it's really born of my own self-care and my own self-love and doing the things that are loving and caring for me and trusting that the end result will be, I'll arrive exactly where I'm meant to be. Right. And it sounds like for you, it's just been this journey of, just going along, and then you arrive exactly at where you are meant to be.
True. Yeah, I don't believe that there's any wrong turns, that there's only detours when we listen and pay attention. And it's where, and nurturing yourself, that is where that inner peace, because you do have control over that. That's the one thing we can control.
Well, I think not only do we have control, I also believe that it is let me ask you this. I see it as a responsibility, right? And not only do I have control of it, but I'm responsible for it. So it's something that I'm required to commit to. I'm committing to my not suffering. I'm committing to my peace, my joy. I'm committing to my self-love. And these are commitments that I'm responsible for. And so it is, and walking from that place gives me a way of, okay, so I'm a cause at all of these things. And I don't have to have all the answers, but I have to be in the process, in the conversation, in the dance with it, if you will.
Yes.
So 10 tips. So if someone was, or 10 secrets. So if someone was to say, Jackie, give me like an insight into 1 or 2 secrets that are found in the pages of this new book, what would be the like little preview that we could get?
Oh gosh. Yeah, the first 3 are really some of the most profound. So 2 of those.
I'll go for 1. Just
well, I mean, the first one, number 1 is awareness. Because without awareness, then none of the secrets happen. Because you have to be aware of everything. You have to be aware of the tone of your voice, like you were talking about loving yourself. I mean, think about how, and this is something I rarely do anymore, is just scold myself or tell myself terrible things, which I would do all the time before.
Yeah.
And just being aware of that how your tone of voice is really important. And that is how you talk to your spouse, how you talk to friends, how you talk to coworkers, how you talk to your children. I mean, you really do have to be aware, and just aware of, I told you with the yoga, I was aware when I was hungry. Another thing is just being aware, of just eating. I'm married to the slowest eater on the planet, and Robert, and I'm probably the fastest eater on the planet, because in sales, I was in my car, I was eating on the go, and just being mindful, chewing your food, even savoring your food, enjoying your food, that kind of awareness, how quickly you eat, just awareness. Anthony DeMello is a Jesuit priest, and he's passed away, and he wrote a profound book on awareness. And he says an unaware life is not worth living.
It's a lost one, truly.
Yeah.
Because it's one built in reacting to the stimulus of the world versus choosing, right? So awareness and what's really interesting, and it is the only place to start, because insight and change can only happen when awareness is the first step.
Right.
And for a lot of people, awareness is confronting, right? And I think I think that's why we often gravitate to quick fixes like diets and all these things that aren't lasting, because it is at times confronting and work to become self-aware, whether that be your tone, whether that be, what is food a substitute for, whether that be what is work a substitute for, whether, whatever it is. It's oftentimes the work to awareness is what people are actually running from. But that awareness, that journey through the hard stuff is what brings you to that place called peace and joy, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yes. And, I was thinking another thing was how the dieting could be a distraction.
Absolutely.
Preoccupation with all you're going to eat and everything else you're going to do, when you could be writing your own book, or you could be pursuing a different career, or you could be doing something else, but you're afraid and you don't feel worthy. And so your mind is, I don't know. I was just thinking about that today.
I would so agree with you, because I think it's almost like the catch-22, right? Because we diet in order to get what we want, but we don't get what we want, then we feel bad, so we go back and diet. And then we have a glimpse of what we want, but because we haven't done the inner work, we can't hold on to what we want. So then we get disappointed, we do the downward spiral, and it starts all over again. And I think we get caught up in this cycle that's going nowhere. And I think a lot of people, that cycle of going nowhere is the crazy that we do, not really wanting to do the real work.
Right.
That will actually break the cycle, until something, for many people, either an intervention by a person or an event or something, shocks you into, I've got to do the inner work so the real change will happen.
Right. And I'll share a second one, which I think is, do I have time to do that? Or
Share a second one. Then I want to just see, I'm getting, Farah is giving you applause. And Pauline is just joining, and she said hello. Diane is on. Miss Diane, beautiful Swain. She's got such beautiful energy. Yes, hunger for God. I love it. Stacy's saying hello. You got some fans out there. Colette is writing freedom, and we'll talk about the importance of freedom in a moment. So one more tip, Jackie.
Okay. Yeah. One more tip, which I think is huge. I think it's the biggest spiritual practice ever: acceptance.
We are so on the same page.
So acceptance is for those things, the horrible things, terrible things that could have happened to you in the past. It's not to say that you forget them or that they weren't important. It's just you accept what happened, even if it's not fair or anything else, and then you can put it behind you and move forward. That's the kind of acceptance. I mean, we're not getting any younger. And for me, it's just funny that now I'm, you know, my thinnest in my life, and now I'm got bags and sags, and I can't really wear sleeveless dresses anymore without the crepe stuff going in. And I could just get really upset about it, or I can just accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think God has a sense of humor, because I think it's a wicked sense of humor, I might add. Because when this book launched, I was diagnosed with what's called LPR, which is a silent reflux. And I don't have the freedom to eat anymore. Because I've had to really watch my diet, and I've had to give up lemons and limes and tomatoes and all these high acidic things, all healthy things, but too much of a good thing. So I think it's interesting from a health standpoint that I even have to look at healthy alternatives. It used to be my healthy stuff. But I need to accept that, because otherwise I can get upset. I can be mad about it. I can, you know, say this isn't fair, or I just accept it. So, and as I'm aging, my husband has Parkinson's. You know, it's like, it's just it's going to be change, constant change.
Absolutely.
And all you can do is, I just think acceptance is huge.
You know, it is. And I was once told that suffering is an optional thing. And the first time I heard it, I was like, what do you mean suffering is optional? We all suffer. But what I got, and I really understand now, is that suffering is what occurs when we don't sit in acceptance, right? Because we sit in denial, we sit in, I'm going to run against it. We sit in, I don't want to look at it. And so suffering is what happens when you're not in control and you don't want to accept what's occurring, and we just suffer. But what's interesting is at the moment you accept, it's amazing how suffering disappears, struggle disappears, frustration disappears. And it's almost like, you know, you talked about peace, right? It's the minute you accept that you get this glimpse of peace and possibility. But the other thing that I've seen is I also get access to answers, right? That can only come through acceptance. So you've given us 2 tips. So when is the book available?
Now.
I love it. So if someone wanted to get a hold of you, first of all, if you're loving this conversation and you want to be connected to Jackie and learn more about how you can get access to her book, and it is called The Freedom to Eat. Wouldn't you love the freedom to eat? I love the freedom to eat. There it is, right? 10 secrets for lasting weight loss and inner peace. Inner peace.
And I have something to share that's exciting.
Oh, okay. So if that's something that you're interested in, put freedom in the comment section. So type freedom in the comment section, and we will make sure that you get connected with Jackie. So the word is freedom, right? Put it in caps, make it bold, because that's we want the freedom to eat. We want the freedom for joy and peace and love in our lives. So type that in the section. And we'll make sure you get connected with Jackie. So what's your thing? What do you got for us?
Okay. Well, I was going to say too, if they want to go to that JackieTrottmann.com/freedom, they can get the first 2 chapters of The Freedom to Eat for free, along with the table of contents. So you can see if this resonates with you.
Absolutely. So type freedom in the comment section.
Oh, and you'll help.
We're gonna hook them up to that. And so 2 free chapters, you said?
Yes.
2 free chapters.
Table of contents.
Sample. But I know you've got something else that you talked to me about That's so special. So you guys, if you haven't typed freedom now yet, you're going to want to type it after. So for the first few people who say yes and type freedom, what's the special thing they get to do with you?
Oh, well, I'm going to have a book study.
Book study.
A 5-week book study, free book study.
So now I've done this with a few authors. And there's nothing like it. So because not only do you get to read the book, but you get to engage in the discussion with the person who created the book. Now, the beauty of this is you get the stuff between the lines that's not in the book. You get this is the journey to this place that's not in the book. You get so much extra. And I'll tell you, the conversations that occur when you get a chance to sit with the author is beyond belief juicy. And for me, it was life-changing. So freedom in the comment section. That gives you 2 chapters, table of contents, and for a select few who take action quickly, you are going to get an opportunity to sit down with Jackie and learn more of the behind the scenes. It's like your backstage pass, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? Not only do you get to like read the book or see the concert, now you get to go behind the scenes and speak with the author and go, tell me about this secret right here. Where did this come from? How did you get here? That's the stuff that happens with the book study.
Well, what I'm really hoping too is that people can just start a conversation about all this. In the very first chapter, I talk about Patty, and I didn't talk about me. My final diet was bulimia, which was not good. And Patty had suffered from anorexia, and that's in the first chapter. I'm just shocked by the women that I do meet, and some of the women where they go, oh yeah, I'm not really overweight. I just need to lose these last 5 pounds. But and just how if we just share and we can see how other people have been in bondage, that we can set ourselves free, and also know that you're not alone in this by any means.
And I think what you're creating is a community, right? And there's nothing like community when it comes to change and transformation.
Right.
And I think hats off to you, one, for gifting us all with this book, but 2, having the wherewithal to really say, you know what, not only am I going to gift people with my book, but I'm actually going to create a community where people can come and discuss and share stories and share ideas and share lessons and learns. And I know for so many people, this is a private struggle. I mean, I love it. Like, what secrets do you have? And what you're saying is, if we're able to unearth the secrets in a safe space and have those dialogues, that the struggle will also begin to dissipate.
And that's where lightness comes in.
And that's where the lightness and
that's the lightness of the body and the mind and your spirit.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jackie, if someone wanted to reach out to you, how can they do that? Where can they find you?
Well, my website, if you type joyandflow.com, it's an easier way to get there. I blog there every Tuesday. And you can reach me at Jackie@joyandflow.com.
So Joy and Flow.
Joy and Flow, that's where I'm living into now, and I want others to do the same.
Fantastic. Jackie, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I'm excited to get I got the preview pages, just so everybody knows, so I'm ahead of all of you. But I'm excited to get my full copy.
No competition.
And devour the book. And I'm sure within the pages will be some lessons that will shift my health, wellness, and fitness, and how I relate to this journey. And I really want to say to everybody, it is truly a journey, right?
Absolutely a journey.
Yeah.
journey.
I think one of the biggest challenges people have is they think that you get to an end, right? You get to where you want to be around your health and wellness, and then it ends. And I have learned that it's a continuation. It's just like any education and anything that I step into, it's never ending. And the minute I think that it's ended is when things start to kind of fall apart.
Right. And I say this to my pastor a lot, that I just want to be hit over the head with an enlightenment wand and be done. But he always assures me that I don't. Yeah, we just want it to be done, but it's not done. But that's exciting though, because
I was going to say life will be so boring if you didn't have enlightenment. Now I know every now and then I go, okay, enough already. But truly, no, we don't want to be over it. We want
to always be growing. Always be growing.
Always.
The book is available on Amazon. That's where it is. Kindle and paperback.
So available Amazon, Kindle, and paperback. I am speaking to Jackie, the author of Freedom to Eat, 10 Secrets for Lasting Weight Loss and Inner Peace. So if you want to learn more about this book, you definitely want to type freedom in the comment section and be able to get your 2 free chapters, table of contents, and for those who take action, an opportunity to sit down in the book study with Jackie and totally have probably a life-changing conversation about how you can have access to experiencing more joy, more peace, and more flow. I've been speaking with Jackie Trottmann from St. Louis. Jackie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. I'll be talking to you soon. Everyone, take care. I will see you on Thursday, and I will be chatting with Jackie once again. So if you know of someone who's you think, oh, they have to be part of this conversation, definitely let them know that we'll be back Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And we will be continuing this conversation and giving other opportunities for people to sit down. Take care, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.